As a child, from kindergarten on through high school, I actually would go to the museums and the art galleries to do my homework. And so I'd sit under the Chagalls and the Kandinskys and study my algebra and my geometry and, of course, the literature. I didn't pick up a camera until after college. I saw one of those wooden Deerdorf cameras, and I began to imagine myself on the edge of the Grand Canyon with one of those wonderful cloths that you put over your head, and I bought it. So I started out in large format photography, but I came to Santa Fe to work for the Outward Bound School, and I quickly learned that this was not a great backpacking camera. My brother sent me a Pentax Spotmatic, so I shot black and white, and I set up a darkroom in the basement of the Outward Bound School, and I loved it. I loved the alchemy of the chemicals and these images that would materialize out of these vapors and toxic fumes. I did my first international trip in 1978. I went to Bolivia on an expedition around Lake Titicaca in a reed boat. And I took a black and white camera and, for the first time, color. The beauty in black and white is that it distills your vision down to these essential images. You begin to think like an artist because you're not just trying to photograph what you see. That really helped me using color film. I used 30 rolls of color slide film, which I thought was a phenomenal amount of film in 8 months. And I came back, and I loved black and white, but I realized that color added a different complexity to my vision that I hadn't seen before. Like every young photographer, at first I tried to photograph what I saw. However, over time, I realized that that wasn't always possible, and in fact, many times that gets in your way. I also realized that what I wanted to do was photograph what I felt, what was a gesture, what was a moment, and then what I began to imagine, what was possible that the film could render. And as a travel photographer, that becomes very important because you have to know the technical. You have to know how the camera works, what the lenses do, aperture, shutter speed, so on. But then, in the moment, you have to be willing to let it go. I have a blend of being a loner, but I'm also an extrovert, so I don't mind being on my own. However, I also feel very comfortable going up to people and photographing them. Yet, that did take me a little bit of work because photographing people, it's not about the other person, it's about myself feeling comfortable. I'm the one who has to feel that I want to meet this person, that I think they're interesting, and I have to convey that to the person that I'm photographing. And of course, when you don't speak the language and you're in a culture that you've never been in before, that isn't always easy, and it's been a great challenge for me. And I suppose that's why when I started traveling, my first inclination, of course, was to become a mountain climber and to photograph nature and outdoor sports. But I began to realize that what was on the bottom of the mountain was more interesting than what was on the top. I'm completely self-taught in photography. And of course, I learned from looking at books about photography and going to exhibits. But primarily, I learned from my own mistakes. I would come back and I would see a problem in my image and I would study it and try to figure out what the problem was. And also, as I became more facile with my gear, I began to experiment or just try. Low light, I didn't think I could photograph, but why not? Because if you don't try, you don't get. So I would study these images. For example, one time I was in a monastery and I was photographing this monk as he was getting up, and I tried a really low shutter speed, not knowing what I was going to get. And when I came back, I saw this ghosting image of a face behind the transparent veil of the monk as he was going by. And this really inspired me. So then I tried to learn how to make that more consistent and to learn how to do it not only in slow motion, but also using fill flash. And flash has become very essential to me as a travel photographer because oftentimes I don't have the good light. In many ways, I'm a bad light photographer. Anybody can photograph in good light. But when you have a problem, you have to think about, okay, what can I do differently? How can I approach this? What's a better angle? There's so much to learn with digital photography. It's so much more involved for me than learning the basics of film that I've actually had to take some time off just to study the camera, the workflow, and all of that. Because when I go into the field, I don't want that to be inhibiting me. I still want to photograph with abandon. Digital photography actually has given me an extension of my nonverbal communication, because now I can show people what I'm photographing. I work with a wide angle, so I have to become very close. Sometimes I'm literally inches from people. But sometimes people think I'm looking at their toenail, when in reality, I'm not only seeing them, but the 4 or 5 people that are behind them. A portrait oftentimes is an image of the relationship between the photographer and the subject. But what I'm also interested in is what that person is, what they're doing, how they're moving, how they're relating to somebody else. And so I stay and stay and stay. I may stay in one spot for a half an hour and not move and just be there, sometimes talking, if I can speak their language, and sometimes just being there. A lot of what I do is nonverbal communication. I have to really extend myself with my body and with my tone of voice when I'm photographing different cultures. Curiosity is really important for a travel photographer, because so much of what's been done before in travel photography is very one-dimensional. I'm trying to add depth, I'm trying to add motion, and then of course I'm trying to put my own personal flavor into the mix, so to speak, of these images. I mean, you're going to miss about 90% of the great images out there because they're going to just flow right by you. But that leaves billions and trillions, and not just of the moments that you see, but also of the way a particular photographer renders those moments. One of the first images that I made that I really liked was in Nepal. I was coming down from a trek and I was really tired, and all I could think about was getting in the plane and going to Kathmandu and eating. And there were these porters coming up through the mist carrying these pots. And I had my cameras on my back and I just breezed right by them. And then a voice said, "Stop. This is the most interesting thing you've seen this entire month." So I had to run back up to the top of the mountain, take out my cameras, compose myself, and photograph. And when I saw the image, it was like a painting. And for the first time, I got a visceral reaction of, oh, this is me. This is what I like. And since then, just recently, I was photographing underwater. It was unusual to have this liquid material between myself and the subject, and it's always a little awkward photographing underwater. But I had that same feeling when I saw the images of, oh, I got ballet, I got dance in my images. Sometimes you don't know when you see it, but when it's on the light table or on your computer, that feeling of yes comes through. I'm interested in what's beautiful in the world. I'm interested in the spark in the eyes and the relationship between individuals, with the family, with the culture, and expressing a beauty of color and a beauty of light, a beauty of action. I want to see the vastness of a terrain in far-off countries. I want to see the soul, the language, the expression of a culture within their environment. I have to react exactly to that moment. The light is happening really quickly, the moment's happening really quickly, and I have to use both sides of my brain. I have the intellect, know what's happening, and then I have the intuition of, now this is going to happen.